Welcome back, everybody. Thursday, October 12th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. TikTok rolling. Go live. All right. Introduce yourselves, guys, because we'll do our usual. Take a minute or two for folks to arrive. All right. TikTok is set up. Bam. Lost connection. Don't you play Lost Connection with me on TikTok. Don't you dare play Lost Connection. Ooh, TikTok's saying lost connection. What's it doing? There we go. All right. Don't mess with me, TikTok. Hey, Big Hawk. Don't you mess with me. TikTok was claiming there was a bad connection, but it's better now. Anyway. Hello, guys. Oh, more likes can attract viewers. I didn't know that. Thank you, Mark Starr. Well, guys, definitely hit the likes on TikTok if you would. Actually, YouTube as well. But on TikTok especially, it can help get more people to show up. So please do. Yep, too much news again today, Evie. That is correct. Oops, turn off my light. Sorry, I'm adjusting. Here, try one thing here. There we go. That helps. Well, all right. I'm very red today. Nothing I can do. Hey, Crimson. Hey, guys. Thank you, John, for the gift. And Lizard Man. Mark Star. I got Mark. Yep. That's the new little one, Vicky. Actually, that is kind of cool. I put it up there. I figured it's a new one on TikTok today, the new gift. So anyway, guys, welcome. A lot of news today, as always. We're going to hit our usual Israel and then Ukraine. Ukraine side of the news, it's still quiet. I mean, there's news. There's one big battle going on. I'll tell you about it in Ukraine. Thank you, Jay. But the news is relatively quiet. Not quiet. There's just not a ton of news today. Hey, Noi. Thank you, guys. Michael and Jay for the gifts as well. Thank you, guys. We're going to start in a second here. I always like to wait half a minute to a minute or something about that before we start the show, just because once I go live, the message goes out to people, and it always takes a couple minutes for folks to arrive. And I always sort of hate starting the news before people get here, because then you come and you're a little bit late, but that's okay. Betsy, you're not the only one. Sorry. Betsy says, the more I read about the war between Israel and Palestinians, the more I get confused. That is a wholly healthy, normal reaction, because unfortunately, it is a ridiculously complicated conflict that I've been saying goes back 100 years, but actually goes back several thousand years, which makes it even more confusing. And both sides have been killing each other. Thank you, Mustard. And it just, as I said, anybody who tries to tell you the definitive truth of who's to blame is lying. At this point, everyone's to blame and no one's to blame. I mean, it's a mess. So anyway, we'll get into that. Yes, it's safe for kids to go to school tomorrow. I would not be listening to crazy threats from people. There's some goof. I haven't even been paying attention to it. There's some crazy threat of, I don't even know what tomorrow. Who cares? Seriously, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So ignore it. Go to school. Enjoy your day. Hello, Finland, Pedro. I love that Pedro's in Finland. It always cracks me up. All right, guys, I'm going to get rolling. So welcome all. I am John Aravosis. Thank you, Charles. This is the Aravosis Report and Brock and Ernie. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where I cover the latest news from Ukraine, but I am also covering the latest news from Israel and Palestine, because that is a big battle happening too. Thank you, Lizzie, for the gift as well. The way I'll do the show, thank you, Adam, just like the last couple nights, I will start with the news from Israel. I will then shift the news from Ukraine. We'll do questions afterwards. We also can do super chat questions. Well, okay, let me step back. Usually we do questions afterwards. Sometimes if I spy a question as I'm doing my main, news update, thank you, Lori, I will sort of jump in and throw it into the mix. Thank you, Eva. Otherwise, at the second half of the show, you can ask all the questions you want, and I'll answer as many as I can. Thank you, Craig and Eli. Ellie or Eli? Oh, you're an Ellie. I'm going to guess you're an Ellie. Sorry. I always get that one wrong. And Marie. Oh, so many gifts today on TikTok. Thank you, guys. B. Smith and Arif. But another way to sort of get a question in is if you're on YouTube by asking a super chat question. I will always answer those next to immediately, and I will always answer them. Because super chat questions are a way to support my work. Thank you for the gifts, Marcy and No One and Arif. They're a way of supporting my work, and I do this full time and I do it for free. So the only way I'm able to do it is by getting support, because it allows me to do this and not have to worry about paying my bills. So thank you, guys. Please keep the gifts coming on YouTube. Please keep the gifts coming on TikTok. I will always do a shout out as well when I see the big TikTok gifts that come up. I'll do a shout out if I can. So thank you, guys. Let's get rolling. Quick reminder, today is Thursday. Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time, we are doing my Coffee Talk. The Coffee Talk is a show I do for the paid subscribers, for the folks who pay the monthly subscribers to help me out. Thank you, Left. Basically TikTok monthly subscribers, you can join me at 11 a.m. Eastern time Saturday. Discord, YouTube, Twitch, and Ko-fi. All of those. So join us, unless my washing machine is getting delivered, which we're going to find out tomorrow what time. But otherwise, we're going to do it Saturday morning. Thank you, Roxy. Let's get rolling here. So thank you, Martin. The latest casualty figures from Israel and Gaza are 1,300 Israelis killed and 1,537 Palestinians killed since the war started. Because I am in the US and we have a large American audience, I'll mention the American figures. The latest figures from the White House today are 27 Americans dead and 14 missing, although the White House keeps saying it believes we do not have many hostages, meaning the 14 missing are probably mostly dead, they believe. I'm not quite sure why they say missing and they assume they're not hostages nonetheless. At least 12 people working with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency have been killed in Gaza since Saturday. They were working with, basically it's a UN agency that helps Palestinians. 338,000 Gazans are internally displaced. That means that because of the fighting and the shelling and all of that, they have had to move to a different part of the region or a different part of the territory than their homes, so they're not living in their homes anymore. And they're internal refugees in essence. Thank you, Vicky. CNN. This was an interesting observation today from CNN. Thank you, Velika. This one surprised me. Part of the reason people are dying in Gaza is because there are no bomb shelters for the civilians. And I heard that and I was like, that sounds kind of crazy. But I'm thinking, okay, they're poor. Okay, I mean, it is a poor region, although a lot of money goes to the guys running it and they use them to buy weapons and make weapons and everything else, right? But guess who does have bomb shelters? Hamas. They've got bomb shelters. They built bomb shelters for themselves. Thank you, Lori, that they're allowed to use. And the civilians in Gaza are not allowed to use them, which is insane. Absolutely insane. I mean, it's obscene. Thank you, Succeed. Absolutely obscene. Susan, I was telling folks, no list because there's too many topics. It's just too much between Israel and Ukraine. I can't list them all. So it was easier not to list them at all. But thank you for that. So let me keep rolling here. Israel says this was interesting too. So thank you, Chris. Israel says they rescued 250 hostages the first day of the attack. So Saturday. What is interesting about that is that means that Hamas had almost up to 400 hostages that day. That's incredible because we think now they have maybe up to 150 hostages, but 400 hostages would have been insane. The Israeli government released some photos today. So this was a really creepy story, but I think necessary because people have been asking about it. The Israeli government released photos today of 3 photos. One of a baby, Israeli baby, murdered, dead, and sort of in its own blood. A second one and a third one that they did not show on the news. On CNN, they showed the dead baby with the face blurred because they wanted newsworthy, basically, and important. The second and third photos were of babies that were burned to death. CNN would not show those, and I don't know how you show them because you can't show them. But there were a lot of people, thank you, Mokab, claiming that these kids were not killed, etc. So the government released it. Now, what's interesting is that it's still not interesting. We still don't know about the beheading story. I will say this. Yesterday, Biden made a big mistake on this. This was stupid of him. Biden came out yesterday and made a comment that sounded like he had seen the photos of the children that were beheaded. There are reports from multiple people that say they've seen it, of the children, Israeli children that were babies, actually, that were beheaded by Hamas. Basically, Biden was repeating the stories he was told. He was not repeating from the photos. That was a big screw up for Biden. I will say that. One really awful story, which actually I will move up because I should have put it right here. This is a new story from Sky News. And Sky News has been speaking to the commander of a rescue service in Israel, Yossi Landau. He's been helping recover bodies across the country following the attack by Hamas. I'm just going to read you this from Sky News. He told them about one mission inside a house where he said he found a pregnant woman shot in the back. I'm telling you right now, this is an awful story. But again, I think this stuff is important. He told us about one mission inside a house where he said he found a pregnant woman shot in the back of the head and her stomach ripped open. When I entered a house and I saw a female on the floor with blood around her, and I saw a gunshot wound to the back of the head, he said, holding back tears. When we turned her over to put her in a body bag, she was a pregnant woman and her stomach was ripped open and her unborn infant stabbed. Now, this is where this stuff is important, guys. And the guy was in tears telling Sky News about this, okay? I will tell you, having interviewed people, you can get a sense as to whether someone's lying or not. And when someone is starting to tear up, they're usually telling the truth, because it is very difficult to tear up. Unless you're a professional actor, even professional actors are very difficult to pull off. As I've said before, this is why this is going to be very complicated. This is why this has always been very complicated. We are not just dealing. This is, and I think this is an important point. I'm not going to excuse killing civilians. What I mean is, if you are firing off bombs and you get civilians killed, not going to excuse it. But there is a big difference between civilians dying when you're attacking Hamas's leadership and going in and blowing the head off a pregnant woman and then cutting her open and stabbing her fetus to death. That is a whole other level of animus and terror. And it is. The second point, even putting that aside for a minute, okay? The second point is, how do you think someone's going to react when that happens? How do you think the country is going to react? Israel is going to blow the hell out of Hamas in response to that. And this is, it's actually to take it away from the shocking side of it, okay? This is what is so awful about this conflict, is it is entirely rational for Israel to respond by going crazy to these kind of attacks. But by going crazy in response, Israel is going to further radicalize the Palestinians and further hurt the Palestinians, because they're going to end up killing innocent Palestinians. They already are, right? And therefore, the Palestinians are going to be more radicalized and more angry and more prone to attack Israel again. So it is, I believe, actually, this is what you would call it in political science. You'd call it the prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma was basically, it's kind of the prisoner's dilemma, but it's an interesting concept in politics. Thank you, Adventurers. Prisoner's dilemma is, you take two people. I'm going to summarize this more or less. It's a psychological game in essence. Okay. Hey, Marcy. And you take two people. And I believe I'm trying to get this straight, guys. I almost ought to Google this and get it straight. But I think, for example, if you let's say you arrest two people. Okay. Thank you, Nicola. And you tell them that if they, what is it? It's something like, if they want the other person to, you can tell me, I'm your captor. Tell me if you want the other person to live or die. Thank you, Elizabeth, right? I want the other person to live or die. But there's two captives. Captive one, if you say you want the other guy to die and he says he wants to live, then he will die and you'll be free. If this is way too complicated to explain. Bottom line of a prisoner's dilemma is, both people are kind of screwed and they end up hurting each other. And that is the problem of what's going on with this battle, is that both sides, in a way, are acting. Well, Hamas isn't. Hamas is a terrorist group. Forget them. I'm talking about the Palestinians. Hamas is an absolute terrorist group. But in terms of Israel and the Palestinians, both sides are responding to something the other side did. But by responding to it, they are making the other side do even more. And then when the other side does even more, right, the other side kicks in, and it just piles on back and forth. And you can always jump in and go, well, look at that last thing the person did, right? Like cutting open a pregnant woman, killing babies, right? Right? Look at what they did, right? Of course we can blow them up. Or Look at all the Palestinians they killed. Of course we can go kill Israeli civilians, right? They could always look at the last thing and try to justify what they're doing. But the problem is you can keep going back, right? Eye for an eye, somebody said, Max said. But the problem is it's an eye for 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 an eye going back thousands of years, that you keep finding another eye that you poked out. And then you poked out his eye, and you poked out my grandfather's eye, and you poked out his father's eye. And it just keeps going back and back and back and back and back. Thank you, Zeus. And actually, Zeus is saying who started it in 1948. Actually, Zeus, the question would be who started it several thousand years ago. That's the problem. This goes back several thousand years, this conflict, which a lot of people don't realize that either. You know, when we talk about who had the land first, you know who had the land first? The Jews had the land first, thousands of years ago. I mean, this is why this whole issue is a mess. I go back to that first comment that somebody said, which was a great comment, when she said, I read more and more about this and I get more and more confused. You are absolutely right. Thank you for the TikTok live there. And that was Lizard Person. Thank you, Lizard Person. Anyway, let's keep going here. So, sorry, I jump ahead on that one. This was interesting. Another Hamas fighter was found. Thank you, Timothy. Another Hamas fighter was found today, I believe in the site of the attack on the concert that was happening in southern Israel, which either means that they have still not captured all the terrorists, or more of them are coming through. I don't know which, but I thought it was interesting because it means that things have not totally calmed down inside Israel either. Israel is blocking electricity, food, and fuel from entering Gaza until hostages are released, forcing hospitals to rely on generators. There's reportedly only 4 days of fuel left, powering oxygen equipment, keeping infants alive, said the head of one hospital's nursery department. Israel, and as I said, Israel said no electricity, food, or water will be supplied to Gaza until the hostages are freed. Again, we get into this horrible back and forth, right? So now Palestinian children are threatened. Israel says, well, not only is Hamas, and this, frankly, this does make it more complicated. Not only is Hamas a terrorist group, Hamas is also the government. Hamas runs Gaza, okay? So now you've got the government of a country, in essence, small country, but country nonetheless. Thank you, Felicia. Territory, but it basically is a country. You've got the government of a country that's run by terrorists, and the government of the country attacks you and kills your citizens, but in a brutal terrorist attack. Do you keep providing the country water, electricity, food, right? I mean, it's like I said, this whole issue is gray. The whole issue is gray. War plans. So the first phase has been for Israel to target Hamas infrastructure. The Israelis have destroyed hundreds of buildings that they allege are linked in some way to Hamas in an effort to destroy the command and control of the group's network. The next phase, thank you, Elizabeth and user 992. The next phase will be to enter the Gaza region to target specific individuals, whether using special forces or a more conventional ground offensive. We still don't know if Israel is going to be attacking Gaza directly with troops. We suspect they may. I was watching more of the former U.S. military, the former generals talking today about just how hard that's going to be. It is going to be a mess if the Israelis attack and try to come in by ground. It's going to be deadly. A lot of troops are going to die. A lot of citizens are going to die. A lot of civilians, on the Palestinian side, and a lot of Israeli troops are going to die as well. But again, the problem comes, what do you do then? What do you do, right? Do you not respond to a horrific terrorist attack on your country, the worst since the Holocaust? Because if you respond, it's going to be bloody on you and on the other side. It's right. And this, I always throw this to people who say, they shouldn't do it. Say, okay, then what should they do? You're the head of a democratic country. What should you do? Right? You've had horrific terrorist attacks on your country, and over 1,000 of your citizens are dead in brutal massacre. Good luck not responding. What do you do? Israeli missiles reportedly struck airports in Damascus and Aleppo, Syria today. They were said to have damaged runways and forced the airports to suspend operations. Sky News says that analysts have suggested Israel may have been targeting Iranian weapons bound for Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is the Iranian-tied terrorist group, basically militants, terrorists, whatever, in southern Lebanon that the Israelis are worried may enter the war as well, and attack Israel from the north. I do have my little map here, my little printed map, but it works. So you've got Israel in yellow. This up here is Lebanon up here. Syria is here. Jordan, this is Lebanon. So the concern is that Hezbollah, which operates in southern Lebanon, could attack across the border and cause hell up here. Gaza is down here where Israel is going to be doing its main thrust. So it doesn't want to, it doesn't want to have a two-front war, far apart, but also the Hezbollah has a lot more troops than Gaza. Hamas has got 15 to 30,000 troops. Hezbollah, I'm trying to remember, I think it's several hundred thousand from what I'd read. It's a huge number compared to what Hamas has. So the Israelis are worried about, anyway, they blew up some airports in Syria looking like they're going after probably, they think, Iranian weapons being given to Hezbollah. Russia was very upset. Russia put out a nasty little statement today about the attack on Syria, which I just thought was kind of cute. But in any case, I mean, they called it a gross violation of international law or something, bombing Syria. And it was just like, oh, bless your heart, Putin, bless your heart. The British announced today they are sending planes and ships to the Mediterranean and the area. The Royal Air Force will begin patrols Friday to, quote, help partners track emerging threats to regional security, such as the transfer of weapons to terrorist groups. And a Royal Navy task group, ships, will be deployed next week as a contingency measure to support humanitarian efforts. Iran's foreign minister also made a little threat today. He said that, actually, that's kind of funny. For a moment there, I caught myself and I thought, I don't have the name. I shouldn't assume the foreign minister is a man. And then I caught myself and went, we're talking about Iran. So of course, they're not going to pick a woman. Iran's foreign minister warned that crimes against Palestinians will see the rest of the axis respond. I don't know who they mean. Iran needs to watch it because Iran is one country where, I mean, if Iran enters the war against Israel, Israel will respond. And I think the U.S. is going to respond as well if Iran does that. I mean, then it becomes a bigger war because I'm not convinced the U.S. would have a problem going after Iran, especially with the nuclear issue. It'd be a nice opportunity. Again, dangerous as hell. But I mean, if you were going after them anyway, you then go for the nuclear facilities as well. So Iran is blustering just like the Russians are. Donald Trump created some controversy. I mention this because it's interesting because Trump was very close to Netanyahu. Very close to Israel's prime minister. Now, whether Netanyahu was playing a game or actually liked Donald Trump, Netanyahu's a very smart politician. So I think smart politicians know how to work Donald Trump. Let's put it that way, right? To work his ego. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Trump created controversy by saying yesterday in a political speech, one, that Hezbollah was really smart. Now, I don't think he's totally wrong. He got a lot of criticism for this. And I don't think he's totally wrong. I mean, I think you shouldn't underestimate your enemy. And you could be fighting an enemy that's very smart, potentially. Thank you, John. I will say this. It's idiotic to say it, however, 3 days after the Israelis or 4 days after the Israelis have suffered massive casualties from a terrorist attack. And they're worried about the other terrorists in the north, who's Hezbollah, who he's talking about, coming and attacking them. You don't respond. Oh, sorry about that. 6 Evo. You don't sort of publicly praise them even in a backhanded, not even backhanded, by saying they're smart. Anyway, it pissed off the Israelis. That was the first thing. He then went on and said Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, wasn't prepared for the attack. And again, he's right. Obviously, the prime minister of Israel was not prepared for this attack. We know that, right? I mean, on its face, it's prima facie case here, right? The problem is, again, do you really say that, day 3 or 4 of the attack? Do you sit there and say, well, you weren't very prepared, were you? I mean, you know what I mean? Like you don't do that about an ally. You do that about somebody you don't like, Russia or somebody, but you wouldn't do it about an ally. I mean, imagine if the Israeli prime minister had said 3 days after 9/11, well, America, the president, President Bush clearly wasn't very prepared. Whether he was right or not, it would be an incredibly rude thing to say. So they didn't like that. He then blamed Israel for not helping take out the Iranian general. So Trump, of course, had to make it about Trump. And he said Netanyahu, the prime minister, refused to help when the U.S. did the drone attack, taking out the Iranian general under the last year of Trump's presidency. Netanyahu wouldn't do it. He criticized Netanyahu. And then he concluded by complaining that Netanyahu then took credit for the attack on Soleimani, the Iranian general, even though Netanyahu wouldn't help. Well, this is not the speech you give when you were president, when you want to be president again, when you are talking about America's, you could argue, arguably number one ally. It depends kind of how it goes, because the Brits are also our number one ally. So it kind of depends which way you look at it. But Israel to America is just top ally. Again, I think you guys know this who aren't Americans, but it really is. You just don't talk this way about your top allies. Well, anyway, the Israelis responded. The Israeli Minister for Communications responded and said, "It is shameful that a man like that, a former U.S. president, abets propaganda and disseminates things that wound the spirit of Israel's fighters and its citizens. We don't have to bother with him and the nonsense he spouts." Asked if Trump's comments make it clear that he can't be relied on, the minister replied, "Obviously." Politically, it's going to be interesting for Trump, because Trump, again, prides himself on his Israel and all of that. Now, what's really important here, there aren't a lot of Republican, Jews in America. Like 2/3 of Jews are Democrats in America, because they're moderate. What Trump is really going for is, Trump is pro-Israel because evangelicals, American evangelicals, and when I say evangelicals, I mean America's religious right, is pro-Israel. And that's why Donald Trump is pro-Israel. So being critical of Israel and then Israel getting pissed at him will not help Trump in that regard. And I did, by the way, I just did a video on TikTok today. You guys can check it out later, but I got into the whole issue, which was really interesting, how many people weren't aware of this, about why it is that America's religious right is so in love with Israel. Do you guys know this? It's funny because, and of course, everybody tried to say, "You're lying." And then several evangelicals came forward and said, "This is exactly what they taught us." So the deal is, did I tell you this last night? The rapture, exactly. I may have told you this last night. The deal is, in order for Jesus to come back in the rapture, right? The second coming of Jesus, right? When he comes back and all the good people go to heaven, in order for Jesus to come back, Israel needs to be made whole. Israel needs to be given back all of its old land. And we're talking from thousands of years ago, okay? So that requires two things. One, it requires Israel to actually exist. If Israel doesn't exist, it can't get all of its land back, and Jesus won't come home. So to have Jesus come home to America, to the world again, to earth, A, Israel has to exist. B, Israel has to get all of its land back, which requires Israel existing. When that happens, there will be like the world war trying to destroy Israel. Sound familiar, right? And Jesus will come back. And then what happens? The rapture, all the Christians will go to heaven. And the Christians will all rise, and everyone else will be left behind. Everyone else would be the non-believers, including the Jews and the Muslims and Hindus and everybody else, right? My favorite comment, now some people were saying it was a lie. It's not a lie, it's the truth. I'm sorry, I didn't finish. The prediction is that what will happen with the rapture is 1/3 of the world's, all the Jews will be told, this is part of their theory, the evangelical theory. All the Jews will be told, you can convert and become Christian. Somebody actually, by the way, said this in the comments on my TikTok video. They said, "That's unfair what you did in the video, because they're going to give the Jews a chance to convert before they die." And I was like, dude, you think that's better? So yes, the Jews will be allowed to become Christians. But if they don't become Christians, God will kill them all in a whole thing of fire. And predicted that 1/3 of the world's Jews will turn Christians and survive. 2/3 of the world's Jews will be burned to death and go to hell because, of course, they don't believe in Christ. That is why the America's religious right supports Israel. That is why they support Israel. is because Israel needs to exist. And it is 1000% correct. And we actually had, I've been studying this stuff for 20 years. We also had a number of people who jumped in and admitted, and they said, that's exactly what we were taught. That's exactly our evangelical church in the South. That's exactly what we were taught. Someday, by the way, I'll tell you what evangelical Americans, the religious right, think about Catholics. Catholics aren't Christians, you see, according to these same people. That's what I'm saying. Satanic, gold knows. A satanic counterfeit is what they call Catholics. It goes down, and I because we're a nice crowd here, I can't even tell you what they say about the Virgin Mary. I won't even, my mom watches the show too. I won't even tell you what they say about the Virgin Mary. It's something else. In any case. All right. Ukraine. Let's switch to Ukraine, guys. Sip of water and we continue. So please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok and YouTube. Oh, I'm sorry. 6Evo had a question. Let me throw that in first. What was the thread about tomorrow? Not much of one. I don't know. Some thread about help me out here, guys. What's tomorrow? Is it like some Muslim day of protest or something? I vaguely heard about it. I didn't care because everyone's freaking out and who cares? People freak out way too much. It just kind of annoys me after a while. Yeah, it's some Muslim day of protest. Big deal. What are your thoughts about Hamas leaders trying to rally up their population to join the war tomorrow? Well, what are they going to do? I mean, what are they going to do? Right? American Muslims aren't going to turn into terrorists. I think that's, if anything, it's rather racist and bigoted to worry that they will, right? I mean, just because they're Muslims, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. Or of Palestinian ancestry, they're going to become terrorists. That's ridiculous. So I don't believe that's going to happen. Obviously Hamas and Iran and Hezbollah are going to do all they can to promote terrorism against Israel, against America, against the West. It's what they do. It's what they do. So, but yeah, I don't care. I don't think they're going to get away. There's not much is going to happen tomorrow. I don't think much is going to happen tomorrow at all. Ukraine. So it is day 596 of Putin's 3-day special military operation in Ukraine. Please do keep hitting the likes on TikTok. That helps to get TikTok. Apparently, I just read the thing on TikTok at the beginning. It gets them to highlight the live more. Who knew? And do please continue with the gifts on TikTok and YouTube. Remember, folks, I do this full time. I do it for free. And the way I'm able to do this is not because I'm wealthy, because I'm not, but because your gifts on here and elsewhere help me pay the bills. So please do. This was interesting, actually. This was a story I pulled from, oh my God, I'm going to shoot myself here. This was from, I hate when I do this. Hold on. I was going to read you the story, but now I want to see it. Now I'm like getting ticked at myself because I'm forgetting if it was the Washington Post. I think it's the Washington Post. Hold on. Oh, come on, guys. This has got to be the Washington Post. I think this is the Washington Post. Yes. So I'm going to read you some of this from today's Washington Post, talking about Avdiivka. Now, Avdiivka in Ukraine, this is sort of the big battle going on right now in Ukraine, or sort of a big battle but that's very in the news right now. Sorry, 6Evo, let me get rid of your question. So this is right northwest of Donetsk. Donetsk is over here. Donetsk is occupied by the Russians. They're trying to occupy also the surrounding area. Avdiivka, right up and a little bit to the left here, okay? Avdiivka. All right. I know it's got the two eyes. I've got to do the y. I know. I'm trying, Ukrainians. Avdiivka. So let me read you a little bit of what's going on there with the fighting. Intense fighting raged around the eastern Ukrainian city of Avdiivka for a third day after Russian forces launched a major attack on the city, mobilizing thousands of troops and columns of armored vehicles. Avdiivka, which sits in a geographically strategic spot close to Donetsk, has been a target of Moscow's military aggression since 2014, but so far the Kremlin's forces have failed in repeated attempts to capture it. Barabash, who is I believe a Ukrainian military commander, said Russian forces on Tuesday began perhaps the largest Russian offensive on the city since Moscow initiated its attack in February 2022. Russian troops are trying to storm in many directions, 10 to 12 directions at the same time, and this with the support of aviation. Russians have reportedly taken heavy losses, but made some gains. Institute for the Study of War, the big defense think tank I like a lot, says Russia will struggle to encircle Avdiivka if that's their goal, as it's well fortified and defended. Moscow most likely intends to fix Ukrainian forces, to fix them in place, meaning to get them stuck in place, and prevent them from redeploying to other areas of the front. But Ukrainian officials have identified the Russian strategy and are unlikely to unduly commit Ukrainian manpower to the access. So in other words, the Russians may know that they're not going to be able to get the town, but they're trying to basically cause Ukraine to leave troops there that could go to the other areas of the counteroffensive, which is a strategy Ukraine's been doing up at Bakhmut to the Russians. So, both are doing it to each other. It looks like Ukraine damaged another Russian ship, the Pavel Derzhavin or something. A patrol ship from Russia's Black Sea Fleet was damaged by an explosion. The announcement of this was put out by Ukraine's naval spokesperson. The spokesperson refused to say if Ukraine blow it up, but at the same time, why is the Ukrainian Navy putting out, oh, by the way, the Russian ship blew up if they didn't blow it up, right? This is interesting. Ukrainian military intelligence chief Budanov, who's the guy that doesn't smile, who's very good, he said today that Hamas's advanced tactics using drones on armored vehicles must have been the result of Russian training. He says that Russia likely has the economic, he added, Russia likely has the economic and technical capacity to continue its war against Ukraine until 2025 or 2026. So just interesting. So he's saying that Russia at this point has the capability to go on for another 2 or 3 years even, which is a lot and scary. But also that from his perspective, it looks like the Russians have been training Hamas on how to use drones, which is obviously concerning. The Netherlands is set to send over a dozen F-16 fighter jets to a training center in Romania so that Ukrainian pilots can begin training on aircraft within the next few weeks. The Czech Republic and Denmark are going to jointly donate arms to Ukraine. As a first package of the newly announced aid, Ukraine will receive around 50 infantry fighting vehicles and tanks, 2,500 pistols, 7,000 rifles, light machine guns, sniper rifles, electronic warfare and surveillance equipment, and more. The International Olympic Committee, this was interesting, actually. A rare bit of good news from the Olympics, I'm very surprised to say, because usually they're crazy. And do keep the gifts coming on TikTok and YouTube, guys. I have like a quota in my head every day of how much I need to make to pay the bills. Keep them coming. I appreciate it. Thank you. The Russian Olympic Committee has been suspended by the International Olympic Committee's executive board. Thank you, Liv. Appreciate that. We got a lot of you now. And Joe and Lizard Person. Thank you, guys. And Mike. I don't know what I always say, because now I'm going to have to which is good. I appreciate this. John and Vicky, because now I don't want to miss anybody. Victoria, Super Hornet, lots of gifts coming in on TikTok. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Listen to this. So the Russian Olympic Committee was suspended by the International Olympic Committee. Thank you, Dark Phoenix. Very nice. And Azrael, Flower Lady with the Cauldron, because the Russians included in their Olympic Committee, or what however the Russian submission was to the Olympics, they included, thank you, Le Balancier, thank you for that, merci, and John, and Shanley, the Russians included the Ukrainian territories, thank you, Luna, as part of their Olympic Committee. Thank you, Jakob, and Forget Me Not. Very interesting. So the Olympics basically said, okay, we're suspending you again. They're still going to decide whether Russian athletes can compete or whatever, but actually a good decision by the Olympics. I'm kind of impressed that they basically said you can't include the Ukrainian territories as your own territories for people competing in the Olympics because they're occupied territories. They're not part of Russia. Again, the International Olympic Committee tends to sort of go along. Thank you, Wayne and Roby and Rainbow Rain and Wayne and Ukrainochka. I'll try to say it correctly. The number of people killed in a missile attack on the village of Hroza, that's the cafe that the Russians blew up a couple days ago. The number's risen to 59. Russia unleashed a drone attack on Ukraine's Danube port infrastructure again. That's southern Ukraine, right along the Danube River here, which borders with Romania. The Russians have been, the Russians have been attacking the grain infrastructure for Ukraine in order to make it impossible for Ukraine to export grain. A crater has been found on Romanian territory of another suspected drone impact and explosion. The only thing is, the Romanians still don't know whose drone it was and when it happened. So obviously the suspicion goes to the Russians, but they don't know yet. I think it's at least fair to put that point out there. Okay, that is what I've got for today. Our auctions are ending today, so I won't go show you our auctions. They were ending yesterday, but some of the auctions kind of, the auction software kind of blew up. So I extended the auctions to today. So there's a couple more over on Discord, discord.aravosis.com, that you can check out. But that's another way to help us out and to help Ukraine out. 50% of the auction proceeds I channel back to Ukraine. So thank you for that. All right, guys, let's do questions and answers and stuff on Israel and Ukraine. So jump right in. Elizabeth asks, do I think China will attack Taiwan? Eventually, yes. Yes. And the only thing possibly stopping them is to what degree they believe that America is going to get involved in the war if they attack. I think the U.S. will get involved in the war if China attacks Taiwan. I really do. Republicans hate the Chinese. The Chinese Communist Party hate them. I mean, Democrats don't love them. Republicans hate them. I don't think there's a chance in hell that America wouldn't go to war. Especially a Republican president, it's a guarantee. Democrat, pretty good guarantee. So, does Russia support Israel or Palestine? Oh, Palestine. Very much Palestine. Yeah. What else we got? I'm mixing the two because the show, Adam, has been a show about Ukraine. And because Israel is a huge topic as well in foreign affairs, I'm covering it as well, because it's a big topic and I don't want to miss it. I think it's important to talk about it. So I will, especially as time goes on, I will from time to time talk about other topics too. So what else we got? Oh, I'm sure the trolls, I'm sure you've been having fun with the trolls tonight, ladies. Will Syria get involved even though the UAE warned them not to? Syria could try. Syria is in an interesting situation because they've got the Russians sort of protecting them. Thank you, Happy Beach. But then again, are the Russians protecting them, right? Because Israel attacked Syria today to blow up their airports because they believe that there were Iranian weapons going through Syria to Hezbollah, a terrorist group in southern Lebanon. See how confusing this gets? The Russians aren't attacking Israel in response. So Russia protects Syria, but do they? You know what I mean? So the Syrians are going to want to cause as much trouble as possible for Israel. Yes. I'm not sure whether they are or aren't going to do it. I think you have to assume they probably will. They're certainly going to try. But, there will be much bombing of Syria if they do. The problem is Israel doesn't want to have a multi-front war if they can help it. Nor does America, because that's the other thing, by the way. America will go to war for Israel too. I should have said that. I assumed that was sort of an obvious given, but absolutely positively, if Israel needed our help to survive, we would absolutely go to war for them. Thank you, Gift Moses. That's a guarantee. And that's something that the rest of the region needs to be aware of. There's just zero chance that we wouldn't. We would. It's a guarantee. Will I go? I'm a little old to go, sadly. So I will do. And also, I'm not very good at the physical thing. I'm much good at this thing. So at doing my communication thing. But I'm a little old. Anyway, which news outlet should you get your news from? On any topic, I like the big outlets. They're good. People think, again, the problem here is people who are partisan love to knock independent media because they want you to go to their own partisan media. Stick to independent media. Whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, whatever. If you're American, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, all great outlets. Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, but the news is still great, is great news. They do great with the news. Internationally, the BBC is great. Thank you, Adam. The Guardian's pretty good internationally. They're a little lefty, but they're good. France, Le Monde is good. If you can read French. Sky News, I do. I find Sky News to be great. Thank you, bad guy. Now, isn't Sky News run by like Murdoch too? I always forget that. He's not a Sky News guy, is he? But Sky News is really good. The news is, they do a great sort of news summary on stuff. Is The Guardian? Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, Figaro is good too. Again, you got to speak French, but what do you do? Yeah, but I lost you at CNN because you're listening to propaganda. I'm not gonna, guys, the one thing I'm not gonna do with this show, and people ought to know this, I've never done in my life, I'm not gonna pander to your prejudices and your ignorance, frankly, if it comes down to it. You've been told by people who don't want, there are people who want you to believe lies, okay? Rupert Murdoch is one of them. Rupert Murdoch wants you to believe lies, and all of his networks want you to believe lies. And the only way he can get you to believe lies is by telling you that the media that actually is telling you the truth are all fake news, right? It's the only way to do it. So CNN's fake news. By the way, isn't it kind of funny how every news outlet in the world is fake news, except like a handful of like Fox News and some crazies like Newsmax and stuff, but everybody else is fake news. Everybody. It's a conspiracy of the world. All the top news outlets in the world are in a grand conspiracy to lie to you, except Rupert Murdoch, this Australian billionaire. I mean, give me a break. So yeah, I know you don't like Fox News because CNN, because you've been told not to like CNN by people who lie to you, right? People who told you the election was stolen. They lied to you. CNN is informing you that the election wasn't stolen. They don't like that. They want you to be fooled. So yes, that is why you were told CNN is bad. CNN is one of the best news outlets in the world. I lie too. Of course I do. I'm fake news too. Again, every fact in the world is fake. All the science is fake too. It's all fake. Yeah, that's right. Good for you. Good for you. All right. In any case, what else we got, guys? What else we got? Heather Cox Richardson is good. Yeah. She's very, very wordy. I find her updates to be a little long for my taste, but that's okay. What else we got here? Anyway, what else we got, guys? Do I think North Korea will attack South Korea? North Korea is crazy. North Korea is crazy, so there's always that threat. I will say North Korea attacks South Korea, and same thing is going to happen. North Korea attacks South Korea, and it's they're gone. They're toast. I mean, that's another war we're going to get involved in. So Well, if you go back several thousand years, you've got the Israelites were the ones first in the Middle East that controlled the land. So yeah. So I was being asked to talk about several thousand years ago. That's for the folks who like to say, I was there first. Well, actually, the Israelites were there first. So, but I don't really believe in the there first argument. Strikes me as I've never accepted that argument anyway. Who's there first? Give me a break. That's like the whole gentrifying thing. It really is, though. Oh, this community used to be this way 30 years ago. Yeah, and it was this way. It was a different way 60 years ago and a different way 90 years ago. But you just want your favored people to stay there, so you only go back as far as your people, right? Whether it's a domestic American thing or whether it's the Middle East. You only go back as far as your favorite group and go, 50 years ago, my favorite group was there. And 100 years ago, somebody else's favorite group was there. I mean, so that's why I said, like, you can go back a couple thousand years and guess what? The Israelites had it first. So again, I don't think that's much of an argument for who had it 2,000 years ago, but some people do. What else we got, guys? TikTok's always full of trolls. Well, TikTok's full of trolls because we're dealing with a very sensitive topics today. Very sensitive topics. What else we got, guys? I don't know. Durst is asking, will any candidates be booted from the election ticket in 2024 because of insurrection? It's not really a Ukraine or Israel topic, but it's an interesting topic with the American elections coming up. Basically, according to the U.S. Constitution, you cannot be a candidate for office federal. I don't remember if it's state or not, if you engaged in insurrection, basically. And the question then becomes, it's like if you betrayed your oath of office and all of that. So the question becomes, did Donald Trump go against his oath of office and engage in insurrection? It's a legal question for the courts. Some people are suing. The question is whether the court would actually do it. But some people have said, it's in the Constitution. I am a lawyer. Yep. It's in the Constitution. It's not like, oh, it's one of those silly things out there. Well, it's a silly thing that the framers of of our country thought was very important. So, anyway. But there are lawsuits in a number of areas. People have been suing candidates, including Trump. I'm pretty sure. Yes, Jim Jordan did not become speaker, although the other guy, Steve Scalise, it's not clear whether he has the votes to become speaker. We're still dealing with the issue of who will be running the Republican majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is the lower house of Congress. Not clear. They're still trying to pick a leader, and it's kind of grinding our government to a halt. So we'll see what happens. We still don't have a speaker. No, the Republicans picked the guy that had the most votes to be their nominee, but he's because there were two guys who wanted to be the nominee. So one guy's the nominee, but he needs all save 4 votes because the Republicans have such a slim majority. He needs all but 4 votes to become speaker. And he doesn't have those yet. So it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Did Biden know prior to the Israeli attack? Not unless he's psychic, no. And I doubt Biden has really good relationship with Hamas. So, no. Hamas or Hamas? Hamas? I keep saying Hamas. I do keep saying Hamas, don't I? Hamas? People who know Arabic, what's the correct pronunciation? Is it Hamas or Hamas? Okay, that doesn't really help writing it, guys. I love when the pronunciation, they write it in English to tell me what the correct pronunciation is. That doesn't tell you anything. Hamas. You think it's the second syllable? Hamas? All right. And I want the people who are like the experts in the pronunciation. Hamas. Okay. I do keep saying Hamas. Although Hamas is a way that people do call it. That's sort of what I'm used to. Not in Arabic, but if you write it in English, it's not saying the pronunciation. For starters, you would put capital letters to indicate where the accent is, where the stress is for starters. Hamas. Okay, Hamas. Although I think people do say Hamas. I've got to look around. I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen carefully now to how people say it. Anyway, all right. So what else we got, guys? What else we got? I saw that. Yeah, Timmy raises an interesting point. France has banned pro-Palestinian protests out of concern that there will be violence and unrest and all of this. It's a really interesting question because it's the kind of thing you couldn't do in the U.S. There's just no way. I mean, with our First Amendment to our Constitution, you couldn't ban a Palestinian protest because you think there's going to be violence. You just can't. I mean, that's just not. You can limit the time, place, and manner of it. You could say, well, this location, this time of day, whatever, but you can't say in our country, there will be no Palestinians protesting. But that's different. I mean, America's First Amendment says you can't do it, our Constitution. France does have a history of violent protest. I will say that. And honestly, in France, they kind of have violent protests just for the heck of it, really, to some degree. But well, yeah, the h, I know you do the h a little more like the Greek h. We have a h in Greek. We're still working on the pronunciation of Hamas. I still want to Google this and see if there's 2 different ways of pronouncing it. Let me ask Alexa, how do you pronounce Hamas?
I pronounce that hummus, but I'm always working on how I say things.
She's saying hummus. Okay, Alexa, quiet. Of course, what did Alexa say? Hummus, the food. Of course. Alexa, how do you pronounce Hamas?
The best way to figure out how to pronounce a word is to say it out loud and pay attention to how other people pronounce it.
Oh my God, shut up. Alexa, shut up. Alexa, shut up. Oh, God. You ask her how to pronounce something. The best way, the best way is to listen to how other people pronounce it, which also is a ridiculous thing to tell people. Thank you, Pasha, for the gift, by the way. The best way to pronounce a word, to learn how to pronounce a word, is not to listen to how other people pronounce it. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. That is not how you learn to pronounce a word, but it's also wrong. That's not how you learn to pronounce the words. I mean, you may learn as a baby that way, but you get things wrong, Well, I mean, I speak Spanish, French, Italian, Greek, but they My Italian used to be fluent. It's rusty. My Greek used to be fluent. It's rusty. French is still fluent. Spanish, I'd say, is still fluent. But yeah, anyway. Oh boy. Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know if Alexa would say anything. Hold on, I'm putting on my fan again just to cool things down a little bit in my apartment. There we go, fan. All right, what else we got? Oh, that's it. La de Turquía. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, my aunt's family was from over there in Turkey, Greece, occupied by Turkey. What's it called? I'm forgetting the name now of the area. Yeah, sorry. Someone's communicating with me in Greek on TikTok. What do you think it will take for the U.S. to attack Iran? Iran getting awfully close to Iran getting awfully close. No. This is a good point about Cyprus, but this is about sort of the northern Greece over in Turkey, parts that were Greek that the Turks took. There's going to be war with Iran when they try to go nuclear. There will. I mean, that's going to happen. Israel is going to take them out, and probably America too. We cannot accept Iran having a nuclear bomb. It's unacceptable. And thank you, Ukrainochka. And I worry about that because I think it's completely unacceptable. And there's going to be a war. It's Israel, especially. Iran will nuke Israel. Would Iran nuke Israel? I think Iran would nuke Israel if they could, even though you run the risk of Israel nuking them back. I'm not sure they care. But I think Israel, Israel. Yeah. Anyway, I don't even want to sort of postulate what Israel might do, but there's no way in hell they're going to let Iran get nukes. And I don't think we would either. Yeah. What are the Arab nations going to do though? I mean, they can try, but what are they going to do? I mean, all the Arab nations versus Israel and America, and then you're going to get Russia involved. I mean, then it's going to get interesting. I mean, so tomorrow, I honestly think everybody asking the question about tomorrow are trolls, to be totally honest. I don't mean to be rude, guys, but I think you guys are trolls. All right. Stop asking about tomorrow. Guys, mute whoever's asking about tomorrow. I think they're trolls at this point. I really do. Give them 5 minutes. Just give them 5 minutes. But I think they're trolls. Really? Okay. Because a lot of people are asking, and I kind of feel like they've been put up to it, to be honest. There's legitimate concern. All right, well, don't mute them. There's legitimate concern where? Where are you guys getting okay, don't mute them. Where are you guys getting this from about tomorrow? Because literally I saw one reference. Where are you getting this from that everyone's got you all freaked out? I mean, where is it, though? The Iranian spokesperson. Who cares what the Iranian spokesperson says? You know what I mean? There's some Muslim Day World protest, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, you know what's going to happen. They're going to burn Israeli flags in Crazy Town, and that's about it. It's not going to happen in America. Oh, okay. I mean, there will be not crazy people burning Israeli flags here. Big deal, and it'll be like 5 people protesting in Detroit or New York City or something. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. Yeah, I just think people are kind of, TikTok, forget it. I mean, my concern was you're hearing it on TikTok and elsewhere. That was my concern. I would not pay attention to that. Now you got me looking at this, but no, I just, yeah, there's just no, I don't care. I really don't. I just don't think it's going to matter. Let me look here. So what is this stupid thing? Looking here. No. Oh, well, that's different. Okay, that's different. No. You guys were asking about us in general. If you're Jewish, that's a different question. Sorry, because I'm reading some of the news here now. If you're talking about Americans overall and Europeans overall, give me a break, right? Well, okay. I know some people put out warnings, but some people put out warnings because they want traffic. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I would not believe people coming on and telling you about the biggest news tomorrow. Look out, everybody! Come on, they're looking for traffic. If I were Jewish, I'd be worried overall right now, because I think you absolutely run the risk of, whether it's copycat or whatever, going after Jewish everything the way they do. but I think if you're Jewish, you already know that, but as far as, it's just not, yeah. Daughter in high school in Canada was sent home because of Palestinian protests at her school. That's funny. Is there anything I am worried about? Iran getting nukes? Yeah, for starters. That's a little crazy. Are the terrorists coming across our border? Well, not that we know, because we would have caught them. So, and honestly, if the terrorists were coming across our border, they would have done a lot more. I mean, 9/11 was an anomaly. 9/11 was horrible, but it was also an anomaly. They haven't really done anything since then because our guys have been able to catch them. So I just would not. I talked all about Ukraine already, Wits. You're late. No, my concern would be, again, the crazies going after the Jews. That's my concern, because they always do it. And that is what I mean, after this attack, we should have been worried about it. And now we should be worried even more, because they're going to use Israel responding to drum up even more anger at the Jews. So that the usual targets, unfortunately, I would be worried about, but that's not tomorrow. That's in general. Because again, whole reason Israel exists is because people like going after Jews, and they have for thousands of years. Yep. Synagogues, etc. Exactly. I don't know what that means, Crimson. I don't know what that means. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, Palestinians protesting, you're fine to protest. I don't care if they protest. So what? You know what I mean? Again, this is America. Palestinians are allowed to protest. I mean, don't be idiots about it. Don't laud the terrorism. Then you're just an idiot. It's illegal, by the way, in America. You're allowed to have Nazi protests in America. I mean, it's allowed. You're an idiot, but I that's what I'm saying. I don't really care if they're protesting and stuff. Big deal. Thank you, Lori. No, I'm worried about the terrorism, but again, Jewish targets, we should always be worried, because that's what these crazies do, although I will say in America, a lot of the folks going after Jews and everybody else tend to be some of the, Looney Tune white supremacist crowd. They're not necessarily it's not like we have a ton of Muslim attacks on Muslim terrorism in America going against Jews, not like we do the white supremacist guys, certainly. You know what I mean? I don't have the data, but I'm saying in terms of all the attacks we've had in the last many years, it's been white supremacists, really, which, one should worry about anyway. But anyway, what else we got, guys? Oh God, the nuclear deal thing. I mean, that talk about a complicated issue, you're spamming. Don't spam. Iran does not have nukes yet, if that's what you mean, depending who you mean. Israel has nukes. Yeah. Israel has around 90 to 100 nukes. We think, publicly, we think, who knows, none of us know, because it's could be a fly in my head. Hopefully not, because I killed a fly earlier. Shouldn't be another one inside. Shouldn't be. Who cares about you? My mother and my dog, among others. And my dog's prettier than you, so she counts. How long could this war last? Years. The thing is that taking or attacking cities is hard and takes a long time. I think we can try Discord tonight. Yeah, because we're since we're doing questions now anyway, we can quit soon. Thank you. Appreciate it, TikTokers, for caring. But yeah, we can go to we can do that. Liberia's question above. So you can, okay, hang on a second. Liberia. Oh, Liberia. Oh, well, it depends what Libera. You're scared about all the news because you're from Ukraine. I guess it depends which news you're scared about and why. You know what I mean? Obviously, if you're in Ukraine or you're from Ukraine, you should be worried anyway, just overall. You know what I mean? But it depends kind of why and what. If I was from Ukraine, I wouldn't be worried about the Muslim Day of Action or whatever it is tomorrow. That's not my concern, right? Your concern obviously is the crazy Russians and American support and where it's heading. You know what I mean? Those are reasonable things to be, not even reasonable. Those are things one should be worried about, right? But yeah, no. But I mean, but the Muslim Day of Protest, that's not going to affect you guys in Ukraine, not at all. You know. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, I did see this. Yes, you know what? I saw this right before I came on, and then it kind of left my head. Kelly just mentioned this. The U.S. and Qatar have quietly agreed to extend the hold on Iran's $6 billion being held in Qatari banks, which is interesting. Yeah. This was the money that was only going to be allowed to be released as humanitarian aid and food and medicine in exchange for the hostages Iran released or whatever it was. And Biden got criticized for it by the Republicans. Very interesting. Oh, that's what she was asking. Okay, thank you, Manda. I thought I was missing something. Manda says she was asking what would happen if Russia used a nuke and will there be World War III? So here's the thing. I mean, if I assume you're saying Russia using a nuke in Ukraine, we've talked about this before. Generally speaking, it doesn't make sense that Russia would use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. The experts believe. The reason is a number of reasons. One, it's not strategically beneficial to Russia. There isn't a good military reason to use it, right? So you have to basically work backwards and say, why would Russia use it, right? People say, oh, well, what if they're getting close to losing Crimea and they don't want to lose Crimea? Okay, but using the nuke, what does that do, right? That's not going to stop the Ukrainians from fighting. I mean, if anything, the Ukrainians are going to get more pissed off if the Russians use nukes, right? Two, Deb says radioactivity could go to Russia. Correct. It also could go to NATO countries. Let me show you on the wonderful Eva map. We've got Ukraine here, Crimea down here. Again, Eva drew it by hand, but it's a good map for us kind of seeing where stuff is. Crimea is down here. Let's say Russia uses a nuke to stop, in southern Ukraine. First problem, this is land that Russia now considers Russia. Russia's going to nuke Russia? I mean, is that what they're going to do? Right? That's a little crazy. Second of all, they use nukes down here. They could blow to Russia. They could blow to Romania, NATO, Bulgaria, NATO, go across here to Turkey, NATO, right? Nukes over here, Belarus, Russian ally, Russia, nukes over here, Poland, NATO, Slovakia, NATO, Hungary, NATO, Romania, NATO. You've got a lot of chances of those nukes blowing into NATO. And if they blow into NATO, that's arguably an act of war. Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of other reasons here too. Will America enter the war if Russia uses nukes on Ukraine? I think we would. I'm not convinced we would enter the war with troops attacking. Well, I don't know, actually. I think if Russia were to use nukes in Ukraine, we would have no choice. NATO would have no choice but to enter the war in some way. In some way, we wouldn't have a choice because the message would have to be sent that this is unacceptable and to Iran, to India and Pakistan, even to Israel, right? To send the message on the world that North Korea, China, that we are not going to stand with even you using tactical nukes. So I think and if you're Russia, you know this. So if you're Russia, you're going, all of these reasons, if I use a nuke, it's not going to help me militarily. It's going to make Americans enter the war. And if Americans enter the war, NATO enters the war and I'm dead because Russia's having a hard time beating Ukraine. Imagine Russia fighting against NATO. Russia could lose China if they use a nuke. China could turn against them. Brazil could turn against them. India could turn against them. Like a lot of the countries they rely on, at least for actual aid, but also for, sort of diplomatic support. South Africa might turn against them. I don't see how what benefits Putin and Russia is making us think they would use nukes. That benefits Putin. By making us think they would, we're afraid of giving Ukraine all the help it needs, right? And that, I think, is the problem with Biden. He's afraid of giving Ukraine everything it needs because he's afraid Ukraine will take Crimea. And if Ukraine takes Crimea, Putin will use nukes. But I don't want to say never, right? But it doesn't seem logical and rational to me why Putin would use nukes. And I do think Putin is an evil war criminal ass, but he's not stupid. He's rational. And I don't see what logic there would be in him using it, And this guy actually is an expert because this guy worked on arms control issues, among other things. So yeah, kind of am. Did you work on arms control? Did you go to the arms control talks in Europe? Did you have a code word clearance? Show of hands. I only see one hand up here. So yeah. Sorry, that was somebody on TikTok being mean. But I could be wrong. Sure. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Well, I know there probably are a couple of you out there for real. I'm sure there are. Anyway. All right, guys. I think we can do a, oh, that's okay. You're alive, Brian. As long as the mods know, Brian, don't worry about it. Yep. Mods, be nice to Brian. He's legally blind. He needs to use all caps. That's okay. Thank you, Felicia, for that. All right, guys. I'm thinking we should do, I'll do the summary of the news. A lot of news, though, to summarize, but let me try. And then we can go over to Discord and hang out a little bit, okay? Because we often go there and hang out. I haven't done it this week because we've had so much news, but we can probably do a little bit tonight. Discord.aravosis.com. Let me see if I can summarize this more or less. More than 1,300 Israelis have now been killed. At least 1,537 Palestinians have been killed. Netanyahu released photos of dead babies today, which caused a lot of stir. Another Hamas fighter was found alive at the site of the music festival, which means that it appears that all the terrorists may still not have been caught. Israel is blocking electricity, food, and fuel from entering Gaza until the hostages are released. Sky News was speaking to a commander. Oops, actually, hold on real quick. Samantha. Okay, Samantha has a question. Super chat. What if the Finland investigation proves Russia sabotaged the pipeline? What do you think will happen? Boy, that's a really good question. That's a good question. So Samantha's talking about there was something, looks like an attack on a gas pipeline between Finland and Estonia. Finland, Estonia, water, Russia, hint, hint, right next door. And somebody, it looks, the Finns say it looks like, it was an external attack on the pipeline. If it was the Russians, it's an attack on NATO. The question is, what do you do? And I'm not sure what you do, because you don't go to war over it. Having said that, you can't not do nothing. I don't know. I really don't know. Do you take out a Russian cable? Also, because we've done so many sanctions at this point, I'm not sure what else we can do. We'd have to do something. That's nice. We have the Greek Nazis here just to represent that wing of the Greeks. And I will say, unfortunately, there is an extremist, crazy group of Greeks, sadly, my people. The far left in Greece is pretty nutty. And there's also kind of a Nazi-ish party too, sadly. But what do you do? Sorry, we had a little literal Nazi pop in on TikTok who was Greek. That was lovely. I don't know. But because of all the other sanctions we've done already, I don't know what else you do. That's the thing that's hard. I don't know. But it's not like we can bomb them. That's my point. Take out a satellite? Maybe, but then they take out our satellite. The problem is, where does it stop? That's what gets weird. Yeah, good. Oh, thank you, Ash. I was going to say that needed to be reported. Yeah. I kind of blocked it, but I realized we should have reported it. Thank you. Yeah. So there you go. Samantha, I don't know what we do. Something, we got to do something. We got to do something because it is an attack on NATO. And by the way, if we don't do something significant, then he's going to do it again. Right. And it also shows North Korea. It shows China. It shows everybody else that you can do this stuff and get away with it, which is not good. Sky News spoke to the commander of a rescue service in Israel who said he found a pregnant woman who was shot in the back of the head, who was cut. All right, this is bad, guys. Who was cut open and her unborn infant was stabbed to death. This is an Israeli woman in the Hamas attacks. I was then talking about the war plans. The first phase has been to target Hamas's infrastructure. The next phase will be to enter Gaza. The experts believe Israeli missiles reportedly struck airports in Damascus and Aleppo, Syria. The experts think that the Israelis may believe that the Syrians were basically the Iranians were transporting weapons via Syria to Hezbollah, which is the terrorist group in southern Lebanon. The Brits are sending planes and ships to Israel and the region. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister warned that crimes against Palestinians will see the rest of the axis respond, whatever that means. Donald Trump's gotten into some trouble because he criticized Netanyahu and Israel. Kind of bad timing for Trump. Then we jumped into Ukraine. Intense fighting around the Ukrainian town of Avdiivka. We talked a lot about that. It's in eastern Ukraine near Donetsk. The Russians have put a lot of men there. They've suffered a lot of losses. They're making some progress, but the experts don't really think the Russians are going to be able to take the town. And they may be doing it more just to lock down Ukrainian troops in the area. Oops. The Ukrainian, it looks like the Ukrainians blew up or at least damaged a Russian Black Sea patrol ship. Hamas, the Ukrainian intelligence chief Budnov says he believes that Hamas has learned advanced drone tactics from the Russians. He also says he thinks the Russians have enough economic and technical capacity to continue the war maybe up until 2026. The Netherlands is sending over a dozen F-16 fighter jets to a training center in Romania that was just set up to train Ukrainians in the next few weeks on F-16s. Czech Republic and Denmark are going to jointly donate arms to Ukraine. The International Olympic Committee has suspended the Russian International Olympic Committee because they included the Ukrainian occupied territories as part of their, submission or whatever you want to call it to the Olympics. And the Russians said, the IOC said, I don't think so, which is very surprising. The number of people killed in the missile strike in the village of Kroza, in the cafe the Russians attacked end of last week or so, has jumped to 59. Russia unleashed a drone attack on Ukraine's Danube port infrastructure to once again take out Ukrainians' grain infrastructure. And finally, another crater has been found in Romania caused by an explosion of a drone. The problem is they don't yet know if the drone was a Russian drone or Ukrainian drone or whoever, and they don't know when it happened. So they don't know whether the Russians are still being negligent or whether this was before they kind of got mad at the Russians for it. So who knows? All right, guys, that is it for today. Thank you for joining us. We are going to jump over to Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. Feel free to join us there. When you get there, I'll be in the Afterparty section. Thank you, E. We got a section called John's Afterparty, and thank you, Christopher, as well for the Earth. Join us there. We hang out for a bit and talk, probably about 20 minutes or something, while I figure out what the heck I'm going to do for dinner because I'm getting hungry, but not sure what to make. All right, see you guys. Yeah, go put ABC News back on. And otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern time, as always. Friday night, I will be here. Thank you, Super Hornet. So go check it out and see you guys tomorrow, okay? All right. Otherwise, go to Discord. I'll see you guys there. Yep. Good night. Yep. Kalinita. Yorgo. All right, see you guys.